settle the dog down first. You never know, he likes to interact with the audience from time to time, and it's not pantomime season, so we'll try and avoid that. Can't believe they didn't release 50 Years of Hurt this year, can you? It's been a long, long time. It's a real pleasure to be here in Leicester. First time I've been here since they became champions of the Premier League. Everyone might have seen that Mr. Vardy signed a contract for 4 years today. So Leicester's happy, no one else is. We all wanted to sign him ourselves. Fantastic to be here. Thank you for all of you who took part in the lunchtime penalty shootout. They're repairing the damage at the moment, and the bills will be sent to the various firms in due course. But there were certain people of Welsh extraction that did manage to get the odd goal in. So well done, Gareth, who was the winner with all 3 penalties in the back of the net. So that was superb. There we go. A big shout from the back there. Yeah, well done. I normally put a lot of effort in, you know, and I put together an all singing, all dancing presentation to show you guys, but I thought today, well, if I can't see it, why the hell should you? So I thought I'd just produce one slide instead and see how we get on. It's incredible to have represented my country all those times, and with the Euros going on at the moment, and you see, you know, the guys representing the country and getting qualified through to the next stage, it makes you reflect on what an amazing experience it was. 17 years, 144 games, 128 goals, 5 European Golden Boots, and a lot of hard work along the way. But what's amazing is that when you retire, as I did after London 2012, last kick of my football career was to score a goal, and I spent the next 2 minutes running around not trying to touch the ball so I could come here and tell you guys that my last kick of a football was to score a goal. But after 17 years of being criticised and shouted at and screamed at, and in changing rooms with slamming doors and what you should have done and what you should... It's amazing when you retire. I recommend it, really. This is meant to be an uplifting day for you guys and get you to go back to work and work really hard, but retirement's good. People start saying really nice things about you that they've never said for the whole 17 years you've just been working with them. And for me, it was an amazing experience. I got inducted into the National Football Museum Hall of Fame. I got to go on Strictly Come Dancing Sport Relief and dance with Karen Hauer, which was very nice. 6 days of my life that I'd love to have back. I even got awarded a doctorate from the University of Hertfordshire, and I even got to go on The Right Stuff and give my try and be entertaining to the audiences of mid-morning television. But many of you might be wondering, well, why has he come to talk to us? And by the way, what the hell's blind football? So without further ado, I'd like to show you what blind football is. I'm not going to do a demonstration, but I do have a video. So we'll look a couple of minutes at watching the video, and then I'll come back and tell you more about my career.
No. 14. Yeah,
come on, boys. Go, boys.
All the way in.
many takes have you so far?
This is the second one.
Oh, you're making on his fault, perhaps.
A tense time for the host nation, but a foul on David Clarke created a penalty for England in front of a full house, which he converted into a goal. Finally, victory for England as the game ended, England 2, South Korea 1.
England's highest capped player, David Clarke. The crowd were uncontainable.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, that's blind football. Now, I remember the emotion of what I was feeling when I scored that goal, because we were 1-0 down and I was best described as angry. I picked the ball up, as you saw there, took it past 3 people and realised, oh my God, it's on my right foot and I've only got a left really. But I just hit it as hard as I can into the corner and it went in. And I got so excited, I ended up hugging the ref. Which made his day, because as a German referee, he got on the front page of the Metro the following morning and there he was hugging me, which is, I did my bit for diplomatic relations, I think, in the football world. But let me take you right back to 1970, when I was born in Wigan in the northwest of England. Really, yeah, don't forget, we won the FA Cup 2013, don't forget that. It wasn't possible to play football as a blind person at all back then, anywhere in the country. It wasn't possible to play for your club, your school, your county, and absolutely not your country. But I was born into a family who were absolutely crazy about football. My mum and dad were from Liverpool. They moved out to Wigan, crazy about Liverpool. That was in the days when Liverpool was still good. Don't worry, it's coming back, promise. Maybe in about 10 years. But we're looking forward to a good season next season. But, football was everything in our household. And I wanted to play. So my early memories are playing football with my dad on the driveway, and I got into a lot of trouble with him. He's now sadly passed on, and I miss him greatly, but I got into a lot of trouble with him because I gave an FA interview that said, and my dad used to let me win. And I got a phone call that night from my dad saying, I never used to let you win. I used to make it hard for you to win. And that probably gives you an idea of the kind of, maybe a bit tough at times, but the kind of life that I got as a kid that made me the person I am today and made me the person who wants to drive on and try and achieve things. But then I went to another really difficult decision my mum and dad made was to send me away to a specialist blind school in Liverpool, which meant as a 3-year-old, I went away for a week at a time, only going home at weekends. And there I met some really amazing teachers, really innovative people that also saw we had a mad passion for football. So what they did was they made a ball that we could hear. Now, what they did first of all was they let that air out of the ball, they pumped rice into the ball, and then they blew the ball back up. That worked for about half an hour. It rattled for a while, and then it got moist, and then it was a bit difficult, and you couldn't hear anything. So they thought, well, how do we fix that problem? So they put ball bearings in the ball. And what you hear on that video there, sadly we couldn't do it today because it's a little bit heavy and it really would have knocked some of your stands over. But the ball has ball bearings in it, and that's what gives it the sound, and that's what means through spatial awareness you're able to find where the ball is and pass it and all that kind of stuff. So we were well away. And then I went to secondary school in Worcester, which was a school of blind and partially sighted kids, 12 to 18-year-olds, and there was a hierarchy. In fact, there was a double hierarchy, one of sight and one of age. Pretty natural, that's what happens in environments like that. And I found myself as a totally blind person at the bottom of that hierarchy as a 12-year-old. So, I still wanted to play football. I still needed to play football. It was a real passion for me, so I went and played. And I remember one day, just goal hanging as you do at that age, trying to get involved, no one's going to give you the ball. And I remember the ball pretty much hitting me on the backside and going in. That was my first goal in school football. I still, of course, put my name on it. As a striker, you've got to count every one of them, haven't you? You know, even if you meant it or you didn't. But that was when I got a bit more confidence. And then I started to retain the ball better, started to control the ball, started to pass the ball, started to become much more involved in the games. And as I did that, my skills and the sort of things you see on that video started to come to the fore and and I gave it every single hour of the day. I probably gave it far too much time, to be fair. I don't think my various teachers were probably that happy, but, you know, I tried to balance it with maybe 4 hours of academic and 8 hours of football. You know, it seems reasonable. Obviously, tell my kids somewhat different these days. But again, with no purpose. You know, why was I doing this? Well, I was doing it because I love football. I wanted to be better at football, but there was no purpose because there was still nowhere to go with it. And it wasn't until 1995, believe it or not, 25 years old, that I first got the opportunity to be formally coached in football. The good news was that you may have heard about the 10,000 hours. I'd certainly done my 10,000 hours of training before that. But in the meantime, I'd left school, I'd gone and got a politics degree, I'd gone and got a master's in diplomacy, and I joined the banking industry, where I've had a 21-year career, you know, I'd gone and got another professional career, if you like, away from sport. Those of you in the audience will well know that diplomacy is a very well-suited degree for banking these days. But then I got this opportunity to be coached, and what happened was, all around the world, all the federations came together, and they said, right, we're going to get one set of rules for blind football, and that's going to make the international sport of blind football, which we'll try and get into the Paralympics. And that's what they did, and they based it on the sport of futsal, size 4 ball, doesn't bounce very high, very few injuries, all about passing, movement, and dribbling, as you saw. And there was a selection weekend, and I went along, and I got selected. And I remember playing my first tournament in Madrid in 1996, and I played against Greece, and we drew the game 1-1, and I scored my first ever England goal. And it was a penalty, believe it or not. Imagine something as crazy as that. England striker scores penalty. You can see the headline. I've never been one to go with tradition. And that was the beginning of my football career. But them days, there were 2 criteria. 1, you could play and you were good enough, and 2, you could pay, because there was no funding for it at the time. And it wasn't until we played 2 European Championships in Barcelona and then in Porto, where I got my first golden boot, and we played a World Championships in Sao Paulo in 1998, until the FA realised that actually football is for everybody. And I'm delighted to say that's been taken on hugely by the English FA. And they realised that football was for all, and actually they should be funding it. And in 2000, for the first time, they started to fund blind football, and they funded our trip to the World Cup in Jerez in Spain, and they funded the kit, the coaching, the travel, and everything. And for the first time, therefore, I got to wear proper, bona fide, embroidered, not printed England kit. So that was just a fantastic experience. And then, of course, I went on to play in another 3 European Championships and a couple of World Cups, and then we came to 2007. And in 2007, our journey nearly came to an end. 54 seconds to go in the quarterfinals of the European Championships. We were losing 1-0 to Italy, and we thought we were going out. And I had the ball on the right-hand boards, level with their penalty area. I had 2 people marking me. I had my back to the penalty area. And I did something that I didn't do often in my career, and I passed the ball. I backheeled it across the box. An old school friend of mine, Darren Harris, was still on the edge of the box, controlled it with 1 touch, finished it past the keeper with his 2nd touch. We went on to win the game. We won the semi-final, and we qualified for Beijing. Now, there are key moments in your life where little things like that can change everything. Without getting to Beijing, we don't get to London, the program stops. That's the reality of elite sport. If you don't go forwards, you will definitely go backwards and probably stop. So we got to go to our first Paralympic Games in Beijing, and it was an amazing experience. But it wasn't quite as good as we'd wanted it to be, and I found myself in the final game realizing that actually things had to change dramatically if we were going to compete on the world stage. You started to have countries start to go professional, and we were still, I was still pursuing my banking career, And by this time, I was running a business centre in Hertfordshire, and also, playing football. And I realised then, in the last few minutes of the game against South Korea in China, that actually things had to change. And so I was going to retire after 2008. I'd actually told my wife I was going to retire after 2008. And then I went on to score a goal in that game. We beat South Korea in a penalty shootout to finish the tournament. And when interviewed afterwards, I said, no, I'm not retiring, I'm carrying on. That took some explaining at home, believe me. Another 4 years is what I'd signed up to, and it was the best 4 years of my life. Because, of course, it was the London cycle, and after 2 European Championships with 2 more golden boots picked up, and a World Championships in England where we got to the semi-finals, we found ourselves leading up to London. And who went to London? Yeah. Anyone who raised their hand? No point doing that with me. Nice try for the audience, though. Well done. Fantastic, wasn't it? An amazing experience, incredible atmosphere, absolutely incredible for me. Now, but for me, it had something extra, because about 3 weeks before we were due to go to our holding camp, I got a phone call from performance director. I was a little bit concerned about the phone call because we'd been drug tested on the Saturday, and whilst I knew I was clean, you never quite know. But he said to me, look, they want you to carry the Paralympic torch. They said, well, we're going into the training camp. I don't want to be away from the guys. It's not fair. We said we're going to do this together. He said, no, you don't understand. What they want you to do is they want you to receive the torch from a guy who's a double amputee, who's going to be coming in on a zip wire from the orbit. And he's going to hand the torch to you, and you're going to do a little spin, and then you're going to run across the stadium, and you're going to hand it to a lady in a wheelchair who was the first person ever to win a gold medal in the Paralympics in 1960 in Italy, and she is going to light the cauldron. So I said, let me get this right. There's a blind guy going to be standing, receiving a lit torch from a double amputee on a zip wire. He's going to run across a packed stadium with cameras everywhere, and he's going to hand it to an old lady in a wheelchair. What could possibly go wrong? But it was the most amazing experience of my life, other than obviously the birth of my kids, and it was just amazing to receive that torch on that night with 80,000 people in the stadium, and everyone watching around the world. It actually ended up being the worst £250 ever spent, because my now 10-year-old and then 6-year-old fell asleep. So we've had to show him several times on video afterwards. But it was just an incredible experience. And to hold that torch aloft and run across the stadium and hand it over and stand there in the heat of that cauldron as it's all coming to life and being lit. And it was at that moment that I realized that those 4 years were all worth it. Training 6 days a week as well as working 5 days a week, up at 6 for training sessions before work, training at weekends, training camps once every 4 weeks over in Hereford and latterly St George's Park. It was all worth it just for that moment. And to know that blind football had arrived as a Paralympic sport. And then, of course, to the game you saw on the video there. It was just an amazing feeling. Can you imagine blind footballs being watched all around? Not only were there 4,500 people in that stadium, and about 8,000 outside who were trying to get in. There were people watching it in offices, in parks, in town centres, in squares, in bars, in bookies, wherever. There were people watching blind football live on Channel 4. And it was the most incredible moment to realise that really blind football had come home. Blind football was taking its rightful place as a professional elite sport. But unfortunately, we still weren't professional. And the key was to perform at the highest level in London to prove the point that blind football should be a professional sport. And whilst we weren't able to make the semi-finals, we were able to compete and draw against Argentina, Spain, and China, and we were able to compete against all of the professional nations. And if we could compete and not get beat by the professional nations, then we justified the opportunity to become professional. So lo and behold, as I announced my retirement, blind football became a professional sport. And Dylan, who was with you today, is a contracted player based at St George's Park in Hereford, who is contracted as a goalkeeper for the blind football squad. And blind football is now a professional sport. And that was the end of that journey that took me from having no coaching, but putting in the hours, to taking that through to 1995 with the first bit of coaching, and 17 years of fighting to make sure that we qualified for every major championship in order to make sure we could reach that moment when post-2012 the team became professional, and now they're working their way through to become Olympic champions very soon. It's amazing how life turns out like that, because without the preparation, it doesn't happen. And I mentioned to you that some incredible things have happened to me as a result. You know, to be in the Hall of Fame with the likes of Bobby Charlton and people like that, Bobby Moore, is incredible. You know, one of 140 footballers to be on that wall in Manchester is absolutely incredible. But another amazing thing happened to me. I mentioned to you that I'm from Wigan. Now, it was an incredible moment when, in January 2013, I got a call from David Bernstein, chairman of the FA, who said, "We'd like to recognise your football career by having you join us at the FA Cup final as our special guest." And I looked at all the guests that have been before, and it was royalty, it was prime ministers, it was secretary generals of the UN, and it was me. And it was just the most incredible thing. But it got better, because you might be aware that Wigan Athletic made the final. And Dave Whelan no longer owns the club, it's his grandson that does, but Dave Whelan had his own journey. In 1960, he went to Wembley to win the FA Cup. He broke his leg in the game, got taken to hospital, had to be told in hospital that not only had he lost the game, but actually his career was over and he'd never play football again. So what did he do? Well, he went on to open a market store. It was either open a pub or open a market store in those days. So he opened the market store, which he then turned into a shop, which he then turned into a chain of shops, which then became the big sports brand that you all know, but it then enabled him to buy Wigan Athletic, who were at bottom of the league and going out of business. He then took Wigan Athletic all the way through to the Premier League, and then after that, they got to the FA Cup final, beating Millwall 2-0, and we're going to play the amazing, moneyed Manchester City. I'm surprised you're letting yourself be known with the end of this story. So there we were, the Royal Box, Dave Whelan and myself. Both had had an interesting journey. Both of us had been preparing for a day we didn't think would ever come. But for him, it was the football club and being back at Wembley and having that FA Cup dream. For me, it was a dream of playing football at the highest level, representing my country. And there we were together because of football, finding ourselves at Wembley. And lo and behold, what happened? Just coming into injury time, Ben Watson popped up, little flick, into the goal. Wigan win the FA Cup. And we're both stood there, and it's serendipity gone mad, because I find myself handing the cup over to Emerson Boyce and Gary Caldwell from Wigan, with Dave Whelan in the wings, and celebrating Wigan winning the FA Cup. And I suppose the serendipity of it is that both of our dreams kind of collided that day, really, where I was there because of what I'd achieved in football, and he was there because he'd found another route to get there. And I suppose that leads me on to talk to you about choices. And do you know what? We can make positive choices, or we can make negative choices. In fact, on almost everything in life, you can make a choice. You could actually make a choice to all get up and go right now. I'm not saying it wouldn't have consequences, especially for the MAB staff, or even for me, but you could. So you all have the ability to make a choice. And we all have the ability, therefore, to make a positive choice. Now, one of the little examples I give is to say to people, right, how do you feel when you're driving your car and someone needs to be let into a lane of traffic and you let them in and they don't acknowledge you? What a crime. Angry emotions, yeah? Angry, disappointment, how rude. Okay? What about if you then find out that that person is actually taking a sick child to hospital? Their mind's in a completely different place, and thanking you for letting them into a line of traffic is actually the last thing on their mind. Now, the great thing is, it doesn't matter what the truth is, because you can choose to think that anyway. You don't actually need to bother about, you know, what's actually the case, because you can choose your own script. And you can choose to think that people are acting positively around you, and you can choose to make those positive choices yourself. And when it comes to your roles, what are you doing? Do you provide finance? Do you provide mortgages? Or do you make dreams come true? So when you're actually signing something off, or you're involved with something, or you're advising something, do you see the picture, the little video in your head of those people moving into their dream place, you know, because of you? Or do you see a few bits of paper and compliance and all the things that go around it? Because again, you can make all those choices yourself. In life, you know, for me, I was preparing for an opportunity that I didn't know that existed. And we can all do that. I mean, you guys fulfill a whole host of different roles in your lives. Why would you not want to be the best partner, husband, wife, son, daughter, friend, counselor, colleague? Why would it not be your aspiration to be the best you can be at all those jobs? And it's a great point to actually think whether you are. It's a great time to reflect, to say, actually, am I the best of all of those things? Am I giving the best of me to everyone else, but also, am I giving it to myself? You know, it was always said to me when I was at school, at those boarding schools where my mum and dad, as I say, took the brave decision. They didn't want me to go away. They wanted me to be at home, but they took the tough decision to send me away to school to make sure I got a good education. It was drilled into me throughout. You know, in those days, pre-Disability Discrimination Act, pre all that kind of stuff, it's not just good enough to be as good as the next person you're competing with. You need to prove that you're better. But whether it was the academic side, which has driven my banking career, which has seen me work for 3 global institutions, and now finds me running my own business and private banking centre in St Albans, or whether it was on the football pitch, making sure that we were making the journey go forward and arriving at a point where the game became professional, it was all preparing for the unknown opportunity. But my goodness, when that opportunity arose, I was going to make sure that I was there to take it. And the great news is, you can do the same. Whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's in your outside interests, whether it's in running your business, whether it's working with these guys here, whatever it is, you have that choice, that positive choice. And be clear about the difference between choices and sacrifice. Okay? In my football career, I never made a single sacrifice. My wife did, when I missed the anniversaries and the kids' birthdays and all that kind of stuff, and my kids did, for exactly the same reasons, for the school plays missed and things like that. Okay? But I made choices, and those choices were understood and everything else. But my goodness, now I'm making up for it, because my choices now are to make sure that the kids and my wife come first. But you have all that power within you. I happen to be telling you about it today, but it's all within you. And I would really encourage you to reflect and decide what it's going to be for you. Are you going to choose the positivity and the path forward so that you're ready for the opportunity? Because when preparation meets performance, the opportunities arise. I just want to share with you, finally, one of the proudest moments of my entire career. I've been banging on the door all game, 14, 15, 16 shots. Keeper had saved them. Keeper had done everything to stop me scoring. And in 2 minutes from the end of my football career, I made a positive choice, and here it is.
In a fitting end to a long and worthy career.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I encourage you, wherever there are two paths, take the positive choice. Thank you so much for your hospitality and have a great night tonight.